Self-care is not intuitive. In fact, it goes against many of the things that we have learned about ourselves, things we were raised to believe about work and ourselves in the world. I'm here to change that. I'm here to change the narrative and blow up the self-care box. I'm your host, Desiree Rew, licensed clinical social worker, self-care strategist, freelance writer, a lover, and a fighter. And I'm Self-Care's AF. And this is Self-Care's AF, the podcast. You ask me, and I answer the questions that get you out of the box and into the life that lights you up from the inside out. Well, hello. We're here. This is Desiree, and I am so excited for our inaugural episode, our debut of Self-Care's AF, the podcast. Listen, they say, because I did a little research, that this is episode 0. That the very first podcast episode you do is actually episode 0. So I'm going to say today, 0 is the hero, okay? 0 is actually the greatest number in this journey that we are taking together. Today marks the beginning of a journey, one that is even more so than a dream. Because I didn't dream this. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't see this 32 years ago when I graduated with my degree in social work. I didn't see living a life fully, living a life free, and living a life that didn't include retiring and working until I was 60-something and then going off into the sunset. So thank you for being here. And listen, mark this for yourself because you are the inaugural audience. Listen, 5 years from now, you're going to be like, I was there for her very first episode of the podcast. So we are dreaming big and wishing big. Welcome again to Self-Care's AF, the podcast, where I'm going to be answering your questions about self-care, how to incorporate it in your life, how to incorporate it in your work, and how to get yourself to a life that is not within the box, not within expectations, and that is fully and completely yours. The same life I'm living. So I want to tell you a little bit about how to do that. And that's what we're going to be doing in this time together. Before we get completely into it, I do want to thank our sponsor for today. In the words of Niecy Nash and Snoop Dogg, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in me. I want to thank me and my company, Desiree Easton Travels, LLC, for sponsoring today's episode. Listen, if you don't invest in yourself first, if you don't believe in yourself best, nobody else is. So thank me for investing in this episode and the next 4 episodes of the Self-Care's AF podcast, where we're hoping to get this message out and to liberate others in their journeys. You too can be a sponsor, and I will certainly be able to tell you how to do that. So moving on, again, I told you it's a special day, not only because it is the inaugural episode, it is 0, the hero episode, but also today, this episode is scheduled to launch on July 8th. Why July 8th, Desiree? What's that? What's so special about July 8th? Well, 29 years ago, on July 8th, I gave birth to the very first thing I carried inside of me that I loved and created from love. And I figured that why not birth the next thing that I've created and carried and nurtured out of love. So today is a very special day because it is the birthday of my son, my favorite son, my one and only son, David Xavier Ham Jr. He's 29 today. And I wanted to say happy birthday to him, thank him, because he put this idea in my head first. So I will say, son, I do listen to you sometimes. And also that this episode be a testament to him and an example for him that he will never become too old to follow any dream that comes to him whenever it comes. I hope that my life has shown him that, but also I want my present and his future to be connected in that way as well. So happy birthday, son. This episode is dedicated to you. And I once again give pleasure at giving birth to something that I hope will go forward and have a wonderful life and impact others as you are doing now. So that's the why. And that's the July 8th. And that's why we're here today. So I wanted to start my conversation really about answering the two, or I would say three, important questions. Who are you? Why are you doing this? And when can we expect it again? So I think whenever you start any new relationship, it is always important to get to know a person, right? I want you to get to know me. Who am I to be delivering a message about self-care? Who am I to say that you can, in fact, live a life completely about you, a life in which you think of yourself first, you put yourself first before you do anything else for anyone else in those big and small ways. What is self-care AF? It sounds really cute, but what is it? So I'm going to answer those questions for you and really kind of talk with you about how I got here, how self-care AF went from being a concept to being birthed into the world, and how we got here to this podcast, and when you can expect to hear it or come back again. So I'll tell you about me. I'm a Generation Xer, okay? I am 54 years old. I will be 55 in October. I'm a Libra. So you already know I'm coming with the energy, okay? And I think it's important to know that I'm starting something new at 54. So if you think you're too old to start something, no. Let me be a living example for you that that's not so. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. You'll know I'm from Baltimore because you're going to hear that in my voice and many of the things that I say. And born and raised. I love Baltimore. Baltimore is still home to me. However, I have a second home, and that's Charlotte, North Carolina. So I moved from Baltimore to Charlotte in 2001, not knowing anyone, but knowing it was time to move. And I spent 20 years in Charlotte, North Carolina, developing my life, learning about myself, growing as a woman, growing as a person, and raising my son. And we lived in Charlotte for about 20 years. And in 2019, on my journey to becoming very much self-care AF, I picked up my stakes and I moved 2,400 miles away from home to the West Coast, to Long Beach, California, where I am thriving. Like literally, you cannot get me out of here. I love Long Beach. I chose Long Beach for me, literally for me, being in the place where I wanted to be and why. So that's my present. That's where I am now. I'm coming to you from the West Coast, which is the best coast, but sometimes I am on the East Coast, working and living and being free. But there are some pivotal moments that have happened for me, and I think they're important for you to know how I got here. So I want to take you back to this little girl in Baltimore. Actually, there are probably about three things, three pivotal moments that happened in my life that really shaped my beliefs around self-care and what it is I was supposed to be doing with my life. Three moments that I would say that really made me who I was. And the very first one that I remember happened in kindergarten. I know I said I was old, but sometimes my memory is good. Okay. I remember this mostly because I think it was a pain point. And what we do know is that when certain things happen and they become pain points in our lives, we really remember them over many other things. So let me tell you what happened. Okay. So here's little Desi in the kindergarten. And I've always loved to read. Oh, I've always loved to read. And we were in class, and the teacher had separated us into 4 different reading groups. Now, I don't know if it was, the reading groups were separated by, who were the best readers at the time or what, but it was 4 groups. And I know that I was in group number 4. How do I know this? Because one day, one group read, and I'm watching, and they're reading this story, and the story sounds so good. And I'm like, I want to read that book. I can't wait for her to come. I want to read that book. And then the next day comes, and I get to my seat. I'm on time. I'm actually not talking. Like, I'm being good. And I just know she's coming to the table. It's going to be our turn to read the book. No, wasn't our turn. So on day 3, I'm like, I'm going to this. I'm counting, and I can see that I'm in the last table. I see kind of which way she's going, I think. So I move myself to table 3. I get to school early. I sit down at table 3. And the teacher comes in, and I'm like, I'm gonna get to read this story. I can't wait. And she looks at me, and she looks at me, and then she looks again like a double take, like, that's not Desi's seat. Why is she sitting there? And she said, oh, okay. And then she goes to my table, not the one I'm sitting at, but the table that I was sitting at before, which was table number 4. So she skipped table number 3 and went to table number 4. And at the end of the day, she came to me and she said, I saw that you sat yourself at the other table. And I said, well, I thought you were going to be reading to that table and I wanted to read. She said, next time you're going to wait your turn. I moved to the other table because I need you to understand you have to wait your turn. And I will say that that was the first time that I felt shame for wanting something. And maybe, you're like, look, Desiree, you was in kindergarten and the teacher was just trying to teach you a lesson, to not try to manipulate the system. But how it resonated with me was you can't want something before your turn. So I'm going to say that that was the first time that me feeling the necessity to wait my turn came. How it shaped me in being almost afraid to say the things that I wanted or to do something that was not within my turn, waiting on someone else to give it to me. So that definitely shaped me from then there on. And I spent a lot of years wanting to do something, but feeling like I had to wait my turn to do it. So again, pivotal moment, shaped my life, just a little girl. And then I would say the second relationship or issues that I had that really sparked and shaped my beliefs around self-care was my dad. My dad and I had a complicated relationship. I loved my dad. I was a daddy's girl, but he was also the person whose praise and acceptance I wanted the most. I wanted it the most. I wanted him to be proud of me. I always wanted to hear him tell me I was doing a good job, and I always wanted his approval. And my dad was not a person who would give those things to me easily. And one day, my father told me I couldn't do something. And what I've come to understand is my dad was a very complicated man and he had his own, difficulties. He had his own things. But he told me I couldn't do something. And he said, how are you going to do that? I was working. It was summer. And I was working and I wanted to work several jobs because I'd had an experience of asking him for things. And many of you know this. You ask somebody for something, you don't get it. Then you develop that hardness of, I'm not going to ask anybody for anything else. And that shapes us. That shapes us. It shaped me. And so by my dad telling me that I couldn't do it and me just burning up inside with, I can show you better than I can tell you. I worked those 3 jobs all summer long and I was exhausted, but I had me a little change and I didn't have to ask him for it. And so that shaped me. In that if someone tells you that you can't do something, you show them better than you can tell them, no matter what, no matter the outcome to you. So that shaped my beliefs around self-care. And if you notice, there's really no self-care involved in that. It was just working and doing, expressing the things you wanted to do and having to wait your turn. And so here I am now, a young woman with this type of attitude entering into the workforce. And so now the third pivotal moment that I can say that shaped my beliefs around work, around me, doing the things that were important to me, happened very much later in my career, by being told that I couldn't go to a conference. Literally. I was working in an organization that I really enjoyed the work, but I wanted to do more. But remember, I'm not a person that likes to, I'll raise my hand, but I also accept the no and the wait your turn. And I was in a position where I'd raised my hand and I'd gotten promoted, but I wanted to do more and I was capable of doing more, but I was a little afraid of asking because at this point, showing that type of enthusiasm is now associated with shame and doing something wrong and having to wait my turn. So I was in the position of waiting my turn and I wanted to go to a conference that I was told only the directors were able to go to this conference. And at one point, I was told that I could go, and then I was told that I couldn't go. And I was very disappointed by this. And because of that, what I decided to do was to no longer put myself in a position to have to wait my turn. And I would say that that was a pivotal moment for me as into when I started becoming self-centered and self-intentional. And I decided that I wouldn't wait my turn. I wouldn't wait for someone else to bring me the book, that I would go get the book. And in fact, in many cases, that I would start writing the book. And it was in that moment that I decided to get my master's in business administration because I said, I'm going to stop being limited. I'm going to expand my knowledge so that I can expand what it is that I can do. And it was in that moment I decided that I wanted to expand my skills so that I wouldn't have to wait my turn, that would no longer be someone else's decision. So that was certainly the moment that those moments really shaped how we got to where we are today. Now, there's a saying that I've heard, and maybe you've heard it too, by Oliver Wendell Holmes. And it says, a mind stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. So if I had to break that down into, like common language, we can't unsee it. Once we see something, once we experience something, once something grows us, we can't go back. We can't go back to the old way or our old way of thinking or old way of doing things. And as I began to take myself into my own hands, what I wanted, where I wanted to be, what I wanted to be doing, and no longer waiting my turn, it was this that really, this saying that I can attribute to what happened next. Because I began to have new experiences. And with each new experience, I couldn't go back to the old me. But the experiences that I was having they were sort of mixed up in this time that I've already told you about. So we can say between kindergarten and the time that I decided to go get my MBA, I had 3 really pivotal experiences in my life that stretched me and gave me the confidence to continue to move on. So the first one was in 1997. I know, like, were you even born in 1997? Like, what were you doing in 1997? That was a long time ago. Well, listen, let me tell you what I was doing. I was joining an organization. I was joining a sorority. So I joined Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in the Baltimore Alumni Chapter. A mind stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. It was in joining and becoming a member of this sorority, of this illustrious organization, full of women, esteemed, of all ages, of all in all industries, that I learned the power of those around you. I believe that you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And here I was connected to women who were amazing and they were great. And I was having experiences and doing things I'd never done before in a manner that I'd never done it. And so I couldn't go back. And so it changed me. So that was the first thing, just joining that organization, helping me to understand the power of collective learning, collective service, and just being around women who was just bad. Like they were just amazing. And 27 years later, I still feel the same way. Then the next thing that came and happened was really funny. This was about 2002, and I had moved away from Baltimore, and I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was working as a therapist. And I was working as a therapist in an outpatient clinic. I was working with youth who were in foster care and in the system, and I was in my jam. I loved the work that I did, but I didn't so much love the organization. And I found myself in a place where I was being told to wait my turn. I wanted to do more, but I was kind of being told to wait my turn. And I found out, okay, I found out that you could buy your own health insurance and it didn't have to come from the job. Why did the people let me find that out? Oh my goodness. In 2002, I found out you did not have to have a traditional job to have health insurance. Why did I not know this? Well, because my mother had been on her job for 30 some years. My father had been in his job for 30 some years. Everybody in my family that was working had been in their jobs. No one was an entrepreneur. I didn't know one. I'd never talked to one, and I had no clue. I thought you went to college, you got a job, you retired, and that is how life was supposed to go. So here I am in my job, understanding I didn't have to be here. So listen here, in 2002, I quit that job and I started my own private practice called Rew Works Counseling Services, where I was in practice for 12 years, buying my own health insurance, no longer waiting my turn, and enjoying my life and raising my son. And this was before I had my MBA, but this was the thing that you can't unsee, the thing that freed me from knowing or believing that the only way that I could have a successful life, that I could care for myself, even medically, was through work, was through a job. But I didn't realize that it was through a job. It didn't have to be through that job. It could be through my own company and my own means. So listen, when I found out about that insurance, that was it. That was it for me. I was out. Goodbye. Okay? And then another pivotal moment, something that happened to me, was in 2008 when I became a part and a graduate of Leadership Charlotte. Leadership Charlotte is a leadership organization that mentors and develops leaders to be community leaders. And while I was serving in my roles in Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, which we are a public service organization, Leadership Charlotte once again helped me to understand that it is so important, the people that you align yourself with. I learned so much about business just being around the caliber of people who I now call dear, dear, dear friends. Like, I don't even know how I made it in life without them. But again, a mind stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. And so this really started the unlearning of a lot of the traditional things that I knew, that I was raised to believe. That work was supposed to look like a certain thing and it was supposed to feel like a certain thing. And you were only supposed to do things and you waited your turn. You waited to be promoted. You worked hard and you got the attention and you asked for promotions and you waited to level up. And then I had these experiences and with these people and understanding that that wasn't true. And so those were pivotal. That's not a word, pivotal. It is not pivotal. Pivotal moments. As I look back over this journey to see where I've been, how did I get here? So how do we get to self-care-ish AF? And what is self-care-ish AF? Well, I can tell you about the straw that broke the camel's back. And that happened in 2021. Because all the while I had been learning, I had started making some negotiables. Negotiable number one, my self-development is my self-development. That it is no longer the job or the responsibility of any organization that I work for to develop me. If it's something that I want to learn, if there is a conference I want to attend, I'm going to attend it and I'm going to learn it. So that was sort of, that's where I was. I was in that mind space. I had been able to level up and serve in varied roles within the sorority and had just come off of a very important position. And at the end of that position, I felt like I had given and sacrificed more than I should have. And at the end of the day, I recognized that that was my fault, that I had given. It wasn't taken from me. I'd given it because I had no boundaries. Then I started to create those boundaries. And so up until 2021, I was really living life solely as I had intended. I was giving myself new experiences. I started having new hobbies. Like I was running, y'all. I was doing like marathons and half marathons, running races all over the country in other countries because every time I got a medal, it was proof I couldn't go back, right? Now I've done one half marathon, 2, 10, 15, 20, 27. Once you start accomplishing things, you recognize and realize your strengths. And each time I was building data. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. No, I wasn't fast. No, I wasn't skinny, but I was finishing every race that I started. And then 2021 happened. I'm living in my dream place and I'm working in a job that I really enjoy. And then I recognize, you know what? I really want to be doing more. I could be doing more. And I found myself back in kindergarten, waiting. I don't even know how it happened, but I found myself waiting for my turn. And so while I was waiting, I decided to put in a proposal for a workshop at a social work conference. And guess what I named it? Guess. If you guess self-care AF, you are right. I named it Becoming Self-care AF, and it was specifically for social workers. And it was really about helping social workers understand that burnout is not a part of the job. And I created this framework and I presented it and it went over well. It was the conversation no one ever had with me. It was a combination of all the things that I learned about myself, that I'd come to understand about self-care, that I'd come to understand about the ways that I was taught and how it influenced the things that I did, how I was conditioned to put everyone first but myself, because those are the things that we enjoy about work. Those are the things we're rewarded for. That's the thing I was looking for from my dad. The more I did, I wanted more praise from him. And I understood how all of that led me to my beliefs. And so I created the conversation that no one was having with me. And it didn't look like the conversations that was going on that I was reading about in the newspaper and magazines. And I did this thing, y'all. And let me tell you, it went over so well. November of 2021, National Association of Social Workers, North Carolina chapter allowed me to present. And when I tell you the feedback was amazing. And one of the things that really, really stuck with me was a comment that one of the participants said in the feedback was that they were so numb. They didn't know how they felt anymore in their work. And I knew then that this was a message. This was more than a workshop. And this was something that I had to continue to put into the world because none of us should feel numb in our life. None of us should feel numb in our work. And we all deserve to be free and fulfilled. And so, kind of in a nutshell, I mean, if we had more time and if we sat down over some really good coffee, I could tell you more and fill in the blanks. But what I really want you to know, who I am, I'm just a girl from Baltimore. I check all the boxes in trauma for childhood. I was born with a plastic spoon. No one's ever given me anything. Everything I have, I've earned. I've been supported. I've been abused. But I am living a life that is truly mine. And I have developed a framework that really works. And I believe that you can too. Live a life that you design, that you fulfill. And I'm really interested in showing you how to do that. So the next segment, I'm going to tell you a little more about Self-Care-ish AF. Exactly what that framework is, because that is going to be the foundation for every conversation that we have. Every letter that I answer, every question that is posed, I'm going to be answering those questions from the Self-Care-ish AF framework. So listen, again, I am proof positive that you can do any and everything you set your mind to. You can do it. Whatever it is, whenever it is, it's not too late. Doesn't matter what degree you got from school. If you want to do it, you can. And I'm here to show you how. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that today's episode has sparked an idea or challenged a long-held belief or just moved the needle a little closer to what you want. Let's stay connected. Visit my website, sign up for my newsletter, hit me up on Instagram at Desi Eats and Travels, and tag me when you are being Self-Care-ish AF. I appreciate your time. Comment on this episode. You know your thoughts are important in these podcast streets. So comment, give me your feedback, and I will see you here again next week.